Hey, what's up everybody? I'm Greg with the Open Throttle. Today we're going to talk about a topic that I think is very long debated, and that is not just is it worth it to get a CVO over a regular Road Glide or Street Glide or whatever model, but that is it worth it to modify these bikes? Is it worth it to spend $40,000+ on a stock factory CVO and then dump even more money into it? So let's get right into it today on the Open Throttle. So let's get into it a little bit here. We all know for the most part what the differences are between a regular CVO and a Road Glide Special, but for those of you that don't know, I'm going to make this one real brief. First, let's start off with the paint. Traditionally with CVOs, you would get a really killer paint job, something very unique right from the factory. You would know it when you see it that it was a CVO. And in 2018, Harley Davidson started to produce CVO paint tins that were just a monotone color, right? A solid color, starting with the Battleship Gray. And then that year they did a black bike with some red pinstriping, but for the most part, those paints didn't really have a lot of effect to them. They didn't have a lot of layering. And a lot of people felt that it was just kind of a boring paint job for a CVO. And then in 2019, which is what I'm sitting on today, they came out with 3 different paint schemes. They came out with the Mako Shark Fade, which is what I'm sitting on. They came out with a red pepper, which is very cool. It's red and black. I think it's very sweet. And then they came out with a silver char with the chrome accents, which I happen to love. I think it's a phenomenal looking bike. And then in 2020, we saw the Sand Dune. And a lot of people kind of got upset over it. They didn't feel that the factory was really putting a lot of effort into the paint job, and they felt that for a $42,000 bike, the paint should wow you. It should really stand out at you. If you take a look at a lot of car manufacturers, you'll see that as you go up the model lines, you can change the paints and you pay a premium. So for example, I'm in the middle of building a pickup truck, and for an extra $500, I can get a custom paint from the factory. Well, we say it's a custom paint job, but anybody can get it, but you got to pay. You got to pay an upcharge. I happen to like that model. So many car manufacturers are doing it. I've even seen some car manufacturers that for an additional $3,000 or $4,000, you can get a very customized paint job. But for it to be on a CVO, I kind of feel like it needs to be really special. So aside from the paint, what do you get with the CVO? Well, you get better grips, you get better floorboards, you get a 21-inch front rim, you get a better sound system, you get a 117 engine instead of a 114. To me, that doesn't really mean much, but you do get an upgraded cam and you do get bigger jugs. So at the end of the day, if you start to add all these things up, plus, and I think a lot of people forget about this, plus you get a factory warranty, okay? So yes, can you buy a Road Glide Special? You can. Can you put a bunch of money into it and make it totally custom in your own? You can. But there's a couple of things I think a lot of people forget. Number one is the warranty. You're not going to get a factory warranty once you start ripping apart the engine and you start to make all these other modifications. That's number one. But number two, and I think this is super important to note, most people walk into a Harley Davidson dealership, they buy the bike and they finance it right through Harley. Whether or not you're putting cash down, or for those select few that actually walk in and pay cash for the whole thing, most people are financing these bikes. So to walk into a dealership, drop $25 large on a Road Glide Special, and then have another 15 to 20 cash to go out and drop into customizing your bike, you don't really see that as frequently as you have the opportunity to walk into a dealership, sign your name, walk out with a payment and a bike. So when you're talking about a bike that's in the mid to low 20s versus a bike that's 40s and above, it's a pretty wide gap. However, what we're going to talk about today is once you end up buying one of these CVO bikes, is it worth it to kind of redo it, to modify it, to start taking all this CVO equipment off and making it your own, which is exactly what I did. And I'm going to take you through the bike. I'm going to tell you some of the things that I did, and at least in my mind, why I can justify the additional expense. But first and foremost, when I saw this paint job, it was before the bike even hit the dealership. I saw it online. I was in the market for a touring bike. And when I saw this Mako, I just knew right off the bat I had to have it. There was just something about it that I absolutely loved. I loved all the things that it came with, from the grips to the floorboards to the snorkel air cleaner to the 21-inch front wheel. I just absolutely loved the bike, and I knew that was the bike for me. Now, in the past, the motorcycles that I've owned, I've always had for a very long time, with the exception of the 2018 anniversary breakout that I was riding prior to this particular CVO. I had the bike in the flat denim paint, which I thought was amazing. But at the time, you know, I just need one bike. I don't need a fleet of motorcycles. And once I saw this particular paint job, I knew I had to have it. So got rid of that 2018, slid into this 2019, and almost immediately I started modifying the bike. Now, in full disclosure, when I justified to myself that I was going to buy a Mako Shark CVO, I said to myself, you know, the bike's got everything. It's got all the trimmings, it's got the motor, it's got the snorkel. I don't need to do anything, maybe just a set of slip-ons. I think we all know how this story is going to end. So did I go through a set of slip-ons? I'm actually on my third or fourth different exhaust on the bike. Put a complete SNS 128 kit on the bike, changed the seat, changed the air cleaner, changed the handlebars, went to a Trask T-bar, to a Kraus T-bar setup, which I absolutely love. One of the greatest investments I've ever made, not just from a looks point of view, but from a performance and a handling point of view. And I'm going to do another video and really get into why I'm such a huge fan of the Kraus and why, even from a safety point of view, I think it's the way to go. So do me a favor, click the subscribe button, click the like button. This way you'll be in the loop and you'll get to know when I'm making other content, which talk about real specific attributes of Harley Davidson. What else did I change on this bike? You can see that there's new grips on the bike, there's new levers. We put a new front suspension in the bike, new rear suspension, which we should really talk about for a minute. I kind of feel that with the new leadership at Harley Davidson, they're moving the company in the right direction. I honestly feel that they're listening to the consumer. I think you're going to see different paint options available for Road Glide specials, so you don't have to jump up to a CVO. I think there's going to be some middle room there on different paint jobs just to look a little original. But man, the one thing I wish that these Road Glides came with from the factory was just a better rear suspension. You know, I can handle the stock front suspension, but actually I shouldn't say that. You got to redo the entire suspension on these bikes if you want them to perform to the capabilities that they're really meant to be driven at. But the rear suspension, I mean, take the saddlebags off, take a look at the junk that is underneath these saddlebags. It's almost insulting and dangerous, in my opinion, that you've got a bike that weighs this much with the type of power that's coming out of the factory, which a lot of people feel can be better, but at the same token, it's pretty powerful. The rear shocks need to do a better job at keeping this bike positioned to the ground and having a much better feel to the road, especially when you're hitting potholes or going around bends. So that's my #1 request this year from the factory, is put a couple of more bucks into the shocks. But in terms of the topic of the conversation, remember, is it worth it to modify these CVOs? So at the end of the day, I think I pulled out of the dealership. The bike was somewhere in the low 40s. I think I got $1,000 off MSRP, plus tax. I'm here in New York. And then right off the bat, I started putting dollars into the bike. I don't even know where I'm at in terms of total dollars put, but it's well over, it's just absolutely well over MSRP of this motorcycle. Now, granted, I did sell a lot of the takeoff parts, but I still spent quite a bit of money on top of the base cost of a CVO. And to me, it is unequivocally the best investment that I made, and I'll tell you why. First of all, the bike is putting out about 128, 129 horsepower, and I've got the torque right up to around 142, 143 right off the dyno. It's powerful, and this bike really hammered down. It's just unbelievable in the corners with the suspension upgrades that I made. I mean, first, second, third, right up through sixth gear. This bike is pulling like a freight train. Now, coming from a sport bike background and riding dirt bikes as a kid, going all the way up through the soft tails of Harley Davidson and eventually settling on a touring bike, I know where I want my power. I know where I want to have dynamic handling, meaning if I need to make an evasive maneuver, if I'm going around a corner, and I want to have that roll-on power. So if a car is moving into my lane or if I'm on the highway, I need passing power. Or if I just want to get on the bike and rip it through the gears, I can do all of that and then some with this one motorcycle. It just completely sticks to the ground. It handles like it's on rails, and I've got power straight up through the power band, like I said, through all the gears. Not to mention, there are some cosmetic things that I did to the bike that just make it kind of one of a kind. It makes it a little more unique, kind of to my personal taste. So when I look back and I say to myself, was it worth it to take this beautiful CVO bike, which in the beginning I thought I wasn't going to have to modify, and then basically completely modify the entire bike? For me, it's 100% worth it. You know, my wife and I love to ride. She never rode a motorcycle before she met me. This summer, we're heading out to Sturgis. We're going to spend 3 weeks out west in Colorado, Idaho, Wyoming, Montana. We are just so amped up for that trip. All summer long, all fall, all spring. We meet with friends. We're always out on the weekends during the week. I look at the amount of time I spend on this motorcycle and what it's meant to me and what it's meant to my relationship with my wife, and just the amazing group of friends that I have while riding. I can tell you that I get so much enjoyment from being on this particular motorcycle. And when I sit back and I look at all the little things that I did, and, you know, people that see me on the street, they talk to me about the bike and we form relationships. I mean, look, that's what we all love about the motorcycle community and the culture, is being able to talk to other people and understand what they did to their bike. Where do they get their parts? You know, how does that seat match up to the seat you have? It's a ton of fun. So I think it's totally worth it to modify a CVO. And one of the things that I love most about Harley Davidson, I may have mentioned earlier, is the ability to be unique, the ability to modify, the ability to make these motorcycles your own. Whether it's a Road Glide, a Road Glide Special, a CVO Road Glide, or any other bike throughout the model, it's your bike. And only you can be the judge and jury as to where you feel you should best spend your dollars. You know, it's funny. It's like this in the pickup truck forums that I'm a part of. Lately, I've been searching for pickup trucks, and I'm looking at Rams and Fords and GMCs and Chevys. And some people say, oh, you're crazy to buy a Limited or a Platinum and put any money into it. It's fine the way that it is. Then you see other guys that put a 6-inch BDS lift on, fuel rims, Niddle Ridge grappler tires. They've got the bull bar. I mean, you name it, they're putting a Whipple supercharger. So we all spend money where we want. We all have habits. We all have our vices. For me, you're looking at it right here. And I say if it's yours and it's your hard-earned money and you know where you want to spend it, then it's worth it. I did not buy this motorcycle thinking I was going to make money on it. I did not buy this motorcycle thinking that it was an investment. I bought this motorcycle because I enjoy the heck out of it, and it's a big part of my life and the community. And I've built a lot of memories traveling around on motorcycles. And, you know, this summer is going to be another one for us as we head out to Sturgis. So if you're thinking about buying a CVO because you absolutely love it, but you're not sure if you want to do any modifications, I would just say to yourself, look, yeah, you can buy the Road Glide Special. You can modify it. How important is the warranty to you? How important is it to have some sort of protection? If it's not, go for it. But you're going to spend a lot of money on paint, and there's nothing wrong with that. If that's in your budget and you want to have a kick-ass paint job, go for it. So depending on how you want to spend your hard-earned dollars and what you're looking to achieve out of it, then I say go for it. I mean, I absolutely love this bike. I love riding Harleys. If I wouldn't have seen the CVO online, I probably just would have bought a regular Road Glide Special and gone from there. But I just absolutely fell in love with the paint. So again, your dollars, you spend it how you want, and I appreciate you taking the time and watching this video. So if you have any comments about whether you think it's worth it to buy a Road Glide Special versus a CVO, and whether or not you think it's worth it to take a CVO and rip it apart and add more dollars, comment down below, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and we'll catch you next time on the Open Throttle.